Hello, welcome back to another video tutorial here at Geekatplay Studios. My name is Gary Miller. Over in the forums here at Geekatplay, Manny wrote in and asked, how do you create a bump map from a photographic image? And the good news is this is an extremely easy process that is really hassle-free. So what I'm going to do is start off here in Photoshop. I'm going to create a new layer, a new file, 1000 by 1000 by 300 dpi, and I'm going to fill the background with black by hitting Alt Delete. I'm going to create a new layer above that. Come over here to my circular marquee tool, create a circle holding down Shift, which will create a perfect circle. I'm going to change my foreground color to white, Alt Delete to fill that in. I'm going to hold down Control and A, which will create this entire layer as a selection. Come over here to my Move tool. Now I can center it vertically and horizontally in the middle of my image. Control D to deselect. I'll come up here to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I'm going to apply a little bit of blurring to that. Click OK. And I'm going to save this, save as, and I'll save it as a JPEG. We'll call this bump map. Now with this layer selected, I'm going to duplicate it, hide the one that is not selected. With this one, I want to come up here to Image, Adjustments, and Hue and Saturation. I'm going to click on Colorize, bring the lightness down, kick the saturation up. I'm going to create a color map here, and I like that green. I'm going to save this, save as, color map. Click OK. Now let's hop back in here into View. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to create a cube. Drop it down in my scene. And I'm going to rotate it just a little bit so we can see more than one edge on it. Double click on my material, and for this I'll just use the basic material editor. I'm going to click on color map, click on my arrow and navigate my way to my desktop and find my color map, and that's what I want. And I want this setting, the map setting, to be object parametric, and click OK, and let's render that. So there is our color map that we've applied onto our cube. Now we need to apply a bump map. So I'm going to click on bump map. Now I'm going to use the map that we currently have as a bump map, and all that does is take it and it desaturates it, removes all the color information. And I'll click OK, and let's render it. And the Gaussian blur creates a very grainy effect, and I don't know how to undo that and make it nice and smooth. But we need to add some highlights to this so that we can better see the effect that the bump map is creating. So there we are. We've given the appearance of a very flat surface to have a little protrusion from it. And let's see what we get if we change and not use the desaturated color map, but use the actual color map that we created. So I'm going to click on my arrow, grab the one off of my desktop, click OK, and let's see. Because the white in the bump map that we created is much brighter, it gives a stronger appearance of a bump on our very flat object. So that's how we create a bump map, and that was rather easy. I'm going to come up here and reset my material. I'm going to come back into Photoshop and try something a little bit more challenging. Over here in Adobe Bridge, I want to use a wall texture, so I'll bring that into Photoshop. I will save as. This will be my color map. Save that. Now we need to create a bump map for this. So the first thing I want to do is I want to desaturate this and remove all of the color information. Now what I will do is I will save this as our bump, but it's probably not going to give us the results that we will like, and I'll show you how to better change the image so that we'll get better results from it. So with our cube, let's apply our new color map to this. And let's apply our bump map. I'm going to do a render to screen here. Oh, it already is. Alright, let's see what this gives us. Well, it's a little bit rough, a little bit too rough, so let's see if we can decrease the bump a little bit. Plus I want it set to object parametric up here. Okay, let's try this again. Alright, well I think that looks a little bit better, but it still is very grainy. It has the appearance of sandpaper that is uniformly applied all over it. What I would like to do is, and this sounds pretty ambitious, we'll see how successful I am, I would like to make some areas of this smooth, and in these other areas that looks like layers of old paint or plaster, I'd like to bring those out as though they are a relief and give those areas, like where I am moving my cursor, give these areas some bump and some relief. So let's come back into Photoshop. Now the reason why I did that first illustration with the green dot and the white dot as our bump map is just to give a general understanding on how bump maps work. And that is, the whitest part of your map will have the highest amount of bump that is applied to it, and the darkest part, being pure black, will have no bump applied to it. And all the shades of gray in between will have various levels of bump applied to them. Well, if we zoom in here, we see this image is very pitted, which is where we get that sandpaper texture from. I like these white areas. They seem a little bit smoother, but I want to even out this image and create more of a smooth effect to it. Then I will go in and alter it and bump up the white areas, or the lighter colored areas, because that's where I want my relief to be. So I'm going to create a new layer, come up here to Image, Adjustment, and Levels. Now normally when or probably you use levels, you play with the darkness or shadow slider, or play with the highlight slider. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play with these output levels. Let me zoom in here. You'll see the effect that this is doing to the image, and that is, it is reducing the whites to more of a gray, and it is bringing the blacks up to more of a gray. In other words, it's leveling out the entire image until, if you go all the way, then it is almost one uniform shade. And the same thing goes for this, if you take the highlights down. So what I want to do is I want to create a nice uniform level of gray where they almost meet in the middle, and you see now I've washed it out. And what that will do is it will create a smoother bump map, which will not give me that sandpaper look. Okay, I like that. Now I'm going to click OK. I'm going to come back here. Well, let's save this. Let's save this as our new bump map and see what results this gives us. Now off into view. I want to apply that new bump map. Trash that old one. Bump map. The settings I'm going to keep the same. Let's render this and see what we've got. Well, this is our render, and you notice it's noticeably smoother, and it doesn't have that sandpaper look. In fact, if you look at the texture on many of these areas, it actually looks more realistic. So let's come back into Photoshop and manipulate this image just a little bit more. I'm going to come back up here to levels. Now what I want to do is bring my blacks up, and now bring up my whites, because I want the white areas to be a lot more predominant. And then play with my output levels. Okay, let's try this. Actually, I think I'm going to come up here to Adjustments and Contrast. I'm going to increase the contrast a little bit more. And let's see what happens if we click OK and then try this again. Okay, let's say this is our bump map. Come back into View. I've got to hide Photoshop first. And come back into View. And make sure our new map is applied, and it looks like it updated. Now let's do a render of this and see what View gives us. Alright, now look at it. I've managed to smooth out these other areas quite effectively, but only in the white areas we are given a good amount of relief here, which I think is fairly realistic. I would like to have seen a little bit more here in this area where my cursor is, and maybe some more up here. But you see how manipulating the grayscale and dropping down the grays to more of black and then upping the white can really have a great effect, and you can control where you want your bump map to be applied on your image. And as it is now, this looks like an old wall that over the centuries has had many layers of paint and plaster applied to it, much of which has fallen off, peeled off, weathered away, and we are left with a pretty convincing looking wall that still suggests some of the plaster is still visible. Let's come back into Photoshop though and see if we can't bring out a little bit more of that detail. Come here to Levels. We may have to completely undo this because there might not be enough color information here. Well, let's bring up our whites. Oh, I think this will work. See this gray area here where my cursor is? This will be good for showing chipped paint and residual plaster. I'm going to click OK. I like this. Save as. Now this is an easy process, but it does require a little finessing once you get an understanding of the mechanics that are going on and decide what it is that you want. But this is essentially how you achieve manipulating your photo image into a bump map. Okay, View has updated it. I'm going to render it, and I'll be right back. Okay, this is what we've got. I like this. I was able to bring out a little bit more bump and relief in these patchy areas, but I think the most important thing is I lost that overall sandpaper effect that covered the entire image. I just got tired of looking at that. And it's not really realistic because the whole thing had one uniform level of bump to it. Here we've managed to make some smooth areas and some rough areas, and that is far more realistic, especially, well, for you Europeans, if you've been around old buildings, which are all over the continent. The, this will certainly look realistic to you. Over here in America, everything here is put up overnight and torn down overnight. Nothing exists that's over 20 years old, so we don't have this fine level of detail, and we're really missing out on this. So this is essentially how you create bump maps here in Photoshop. And let's take this one level further, and let's apply a specular map to this. Let's add some highlights to this. Click OK. I'm going to bump it up really bright, and I'm going to make it dull, and let's see what effect it gives. All right, with that bump map, with just regular highlighting, this is the effect that it gives us. I'm going to reduce our bump all the way down to 0, and I want to position my sun what I'm trying to do is get that typical bright highlight. Let's see if this does it. Okay, this is the highlight settings that we've got. I've reduced my bump value all the way, and this is very unrealistic. So let's apply our bump map to this for the highlights. Now I think the industry standard term that's more commonly associated with this is specular, but View uses highlight, so I guess I'll try to stick with highlight, and I may inadvertently use the term specular, but if I do, just remember I'm referring to highlights. I want to come over here to variable highlights. I'm going to right click in here, edit function. I'm going to create a blank node. Come over here to create a map, projected texture map node, and I'm going to connect these two. I want grayscale output, and I'm going to choose my bump map. Now, highlights work the exact same as grayscale. The whitest part will receive the greatest amount of highlight or specular lightness applied to it, and black will receive none. And let's see if I need to do texture map to this. We might not notice an effect because we don't have any highlight, we don't have any bump applied to this. We'll probably need to apply some bump to this. So let's come back here and make this 0.35. Let's render this. Okay, this is the result of using a specular map or a highlight map. Only the areas that are given relief based on our bump value are highlighted. And I think we might want to reduce our bump value a little bit since the highlights are being applied to them based on our specular or highlight map. Let's click OK and render again. And I think my highlight value is probably a little bit too high. So let's bring it down to about 50 and try this again. So I think that looks a little bit better, but in my honest opinion, I think it looked better without using the bump map as a highlight map. And for whatever reason, I don't think View is calculating this correctly. This area shouldn't be as highlighted as it is because it's all shaded. But Maybe I'm just thinking about this incorrectly. But anyway, this is the way we manipulated the photo image to create a realistic bump map. In my opinion, worked very, very well, and it produced some very realistic results. And it shows you how you can manipulate in your image editing software of choice, how you can manipulate smooth and rough areas of your texture map to create a more realistic appearance. You're not stuck with simply choosing views option of using the, what is it, it's over here in the basic material, using your color map and simply resorting to a desaturated version of your color map. There's a great deal of manipulation that you can use and that's available to you in Photoshop or Photo Paint or Paint Shop Pro to create a more realistic stone, wood, or any other texture you want, just by creating more of a grayscale bump map and bringing out those highlights. So that is creating a bump map here in Photoshop and in View. So I hope you're able to get something from this and use it in all your future renders. So thanks for watching here at Geekatplay Studios. My name's Gary Miller. Have a good day.